the other day I just posted this too. It's just hilarious. There's so much Bitcoin misinformation out there. As soon as people figure out what it is, it's going to really take off. You know, Bitcoin's just a better version of what's already out there in many ways. Sure, it's going through growing pains, but it's definitely not many things that people think it is. So let's just watch this real quick. Let's go through it. Let's dissect this legacy asset trader guy who clearly has no clue what he's talking about. It's just hilarious.
Not a Bitcoin enthusiast, but I'm dying to know what you
That's an understatement, Bitcoin enthusiast. He's a Bitcoin opponent, I'd say. Opponent. Let's use opponent.
think of these latest developments and what they say about the prospects for alternative currencies.
It's pretty apparent what's happened.
It's apparent. You know, we broke new all-time highs. This is a sinking ship. We will not have this as a legacy market trader. We will not have this being a threat to my well-being and my Porsches.
And it's pretty apparent that a currency is a pretty...
Okay, Bruce Richards. I gotta find him later on Twitter. Not to like attack him or anything, but it's just pretty funny. Marathon Asset Management. Just you know, avoid them if you're looking for opinions on stuff, I guess.
hard thing to create. Look at the euro. It took a decade or two to create the euro.
All right, let's compare and contrast the euro with Bitcoin. Centralized, related to debt of many countries, no cap, can be made out of thin air, fiat currency. I'm sure there's a larger list than that. Let's go on.
And a lot of work by 17 countries to keep it together as the reserve currency backed by the countries.
You know, it's funny, I said this before, but when I was in college, I had the opportunity to do a study abroad in Canada. I'm from Michigan, and it was talking about like currency and stuff. And I'd always thought of the idea of bringing Canadian, US, and Mexican like one currency like the euro, because the euro seemed to be working at the time. When in reality the euros just turned out to be an absolute disaster. But, you know, as would that North American currency be a disaster. But interestingly enough, Bitcoin sort of solves many of the problems that fiat currencies inherently have. So it's interesting that even back then, just on an unrelated note, that I was thinking about that sort of thing.
To have Bitcoin, which you produce on a computer, which no one really knows how to produce it besides maybe a few people that have.
Okay, clearly, you know, right there, he knows nothing about what Bitcoin mining is. A few people, you know, anybody can research this and Google it. We can just Google it real quick. Here you go, Bitcoin mining, everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. There's even a great video on like bitcoin.com talking about mining and stuff. So anyway, easily Googleable information. And we had talked about this a while back in the Bitcoin circles, that things we realize as just like common sense when it comes to Bitcoin, people just don't know or aren't aware of. So if you're ever interested in making content or creating content that seems sort of common sense as far as, you know, the Bitcoin aspect is concerned, realize that even people like this guy, especially people like this guy, have no clue what Bitcoin is and really need this kind of information. It's kind of the same way I feel like trading. Like, I'm not the best trader, the most experienced trader, but I do know a fair amount of knowledge that to me is sort of like just I use it and it's common sense, but to a lot of people they have no clue you know, that exists or how to use it. So if you're good at creating content, I highly suggest that you get on the Bitcoin bus and take it a ride around YouTube and Twitter and such.
Have algorithms figured out, and then to trade it, and then they...
Oh God, and then to trade it. Oh God. Let's take a shot every time they talk about Mt. Gox, because that's classic Bloomberg, but we'll wait for it.
Have it be worth a currency that you can exchange is a bit of a stretch, don't you think?
Is it? I mean, I don't know if Newegg takes it anymore, but I've definitely used it on Newegg. I've used it on a few websites. I've used it on Gift a lot. I've bought many groceries with it through Whole Foods. Shameless Whole Foods plug. So it's clearly, for me, that's a currency. I don't know in his mind what the definition of a currency is, but I'm exchanging something for goods or services. That's good enough for me. Is M-Pesa not currency, which is mobile minutes in Africa, exchanged for goods and services? I mean, I think he'd consider that currency, and so in my opinion, it's one and the same.
I do, but I start to think, is Bitcoin, you know, the current netscape, right?
She at least has some common sense. Usually Bloomberg's kind of like anti-Bitcoin, unless it's like the Matt Miller guy. I think that's his name. But this is Mark Andreessen's argument, and many people that Bitcoin is in its nascent stages. Even Andreas Antonopoulos talks about this. It's like the MySpace of cryptocurrencies. There's going to be better versions, better iterations. Back when Netscape was a thing, people didn't know what email was, et cetera, et cetera.
It didn't work, but it opened the door for...
Netscape worked as far as I know. I mean, I used it a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it worked. I don't know what her definition of worked is, but I'm pretty sure it worked.
For the World Wide Web, could Bitcoin be the disruptor that it doesn't work, but behind it, we're really going to have a revolution?
I think Bitcoin is clearly a disruptor in several countries where there are tight capital controls, like China, or there are just garbage money, like Venezuela. There's definitely opportunities for places in Africa, places where remittances are needed, like from U.S. to Mexico or U.S. to Philippines or any other country. So there's definitely a use case there, amongst many other use cases. Also, I love this headline. You know, they could have chosen anything, but they definitely stuck it to him. He's definitely got a strong position and he's sticking to it, but Ponzi scheme and fraud, I don't know. Anyway.
Holland tulips than it is to a real...
Holland tulips. This is great because that was the initial argument in 2013, which was pretty valid. I mean, there were other stuff going on, like the Willie report, where Gox was using existing funds to buy more Bitcoin, thus soaking up any sort of selling pressure and causing the price to go higher and higher. But there was also Senate hearings that were very positive at the time, 2013, in the United States, that definitely helped legitimize it as just illegal asset and sort of, kept people from being afraid of buying and using it.
Currency.
I like Holland.
Here's one of the things that I've been twisting over in my head since I saw this news first last night.
I'm not sure what news he's referring to. I think he's referring to the new all-time high news. So clearly these Bloomberg people are sort of, at least in the balance, as far as, they're not going to call it garbage, which is where it started, obviously. And everybody's got to get around that corner sometime. I clearly was there before 2013. I had heard about it, I think in a subreddit somewhere, or like Slashdot or something. And I just dismissed it, just like anybody would or should or could. But it's clearly taken off since then.
Were people really naive enough to believe that Bitcoin, just because it was an alternative or a digital currency, was somehow immune to the foibles of all markets?
He makes a really good point that markets are, he's about to say markets are people and people act the same every time, and that's true. I think what they're trying to do is sort of call the top of this rally, which I think they're going to be wrong, but that's what he's sort of leading to.
Markets are run by people, right? And some people always will lie, cheat, steal. Okay,
so I wasn't talking about TA necessarily, but he was talking about all the scandals and scams that go on in cryptocurrencies. But human behavior is why TA works at all, because it repeats itself in very likewise fashions.
And defraud you. And if that's what happened at Mt. Gox, why should we be surprised?
Oh, take a shot. That's it. Let's get it out here. I got some, let's see, what is this? Nolika Bavani. It's this like cherry Polish wine. I think I got it some like liquor store, some like Italian European liquor store. I don't know. Just like Robitussin.
Surprised.
I think it's more basic than that. Stephanie, how many Bitcoins do you have in your pocket?
How many do you have in your pocket? Just tell me. Let me know. That's the beauty of it. You can have it in your pocket and nobody would know. You can walk it across the border and nobody would know. You can have it in your head in a brain wallet and nobody would know. You could have it in a paper wallet in the bank and nobody would know. You could have it on a QR code underneath your desk and nobody would know. That's the whole point of it.
I can't say that hold on.
She doesn't have any, clearly. She doesn't have any. There are definitely people on Bloomberg in the beginning who had some when Matt Miller was talking about it in 2013 and beyond. I forget the guy with the glasses is bald. That's most of them, but he's an interesting talking head for sure.
I can't say that I have a Bitcoin wallet, but when this Bitcoin bonanza began, I hated on it right, left, and center.
Yeah, they did. At least she's being honest. That's good.
But I have taken a turn in the last few weeks when I've seen Mark Andreessen.
Last few weeks, all-time high. See, this is like the general public. This is where we see like an influx of people at every high or low. When the low happens, it's dead. It's not coming back. And when the high happens, this is legitimate. Things are gonna do stuff. Blah blah blah. So people start buying, and then you get this parabolic spike in the price. Again, human behavior.
Making a case for it. When you see
Mark Andreessen, I didn't see his recent article. I was going to try to look for that. I know he did an article that I retweet every once in a while about why Bitcoin matters. Really great piece from like New York Times, I think. I'll try to find it.
Companies like PayPal start to get worried. I mean, Visa and Mastercard.
Yeah, PayPal should be worried. So should Western Union and any other money transmitting service. Venmo. Now, if they were smart, they would just incorporate it into their services. And like I said on Twitter the other day too, when Bitcoin is just like an underlying invisible payment layer, that's when you know we've won, because people in the spaces that use money transmission finally realize that it's a useful tool for them.
MasterCard took their lumps in the beginning. Are Visa and MasterCard perfect? No.
It's a big difference. Visa and MasterCard, obviously, we know what they are. That's a payment.
Yeah, we know what they are. We, as in the legacy people, I guess he's talking about. I don't know. I think Bitcoin is definitely like a millennial thing, but there are plenty of older folks who are into Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin and get Bitcoin. But I think Bitcoin as a whole is definitely a post-boomer currency phenomenon, exciting piece of technology.
Arrangement for you to be able to purchase, and they have arrangements with the banks to pay back.
Okay.
Yeah, they have arrangements, not like, Coinbase or Circle used to. Rip Circle, garbage company now. But yeah, Coinbase, I work with Coinbase almost weekly to arrange for payments, blah, blah, blah. Bitwage is another one where you can sign up to get paid with Bitcoin or pay employees with Bitcoin. In Canada, there's one that you can pay bills with Bitcoin. I forget the name of it right now, but there's clearly plenty of businesses that handle Bitcoin, and on that front, at least, even legitimize it.
And this is something very different. This is something which on your computer.
Guys, look, listen, this is very different. I mean, he's right about that. It is like the most unique thing to come to money in a long time. Thousands of years maybe, but what he's about to say is, it comes from God knows what and algorithms, blah, blah, blah. Again, which is true. On the face value is kind of crazy to think about, but when you switch your mindset from like physical to digital, and that's where the analogies kind of break down some of the time, but the mining one is pretty great because it's pretty true. As miners get more sophisticated and advanced, it's harder to find the golden egg, as it were. Just like in the real world, you mine the top layer of gold with regular just digging in the ground, panning and sluicing in a river, and then eventually you have to dig deeper in the quartz quarries and start strip mining, and it costs more money, and then the price goes up if the demand is still there, yada, yada, yada.
You can create out of thin air just by...
Thin air, yeah. You can create out of thin air. Not really. You kind of need to solve the puzzle, and it's very specific in a stepwise fashion, so... It's not really, I can't just I can't go on Minesweeper and make, a Bitcoin right now. It's just not how it works.
Programming algorithms, and it's created, and then all of a sudden people trade it, and people think it's that businesses and people will want it as a store of value.
Yeah, that's the point, because it's got a cap, 21 million cap. So you can't just keep making it like the euro or the US dollar. You can just print it, give it to the bank, let them borrow with it or whatever they do. That's the point. That's the whole, one of the impetuses, at least for Satoshi Nakamoto, on making the damn thing in the first place.
I've always thought it was a Ponzi scheme. I think
Really? Ponzi scheme. I love this. Let me Google this real quick. Ponzi scheme, according to Google, a form of fraud in which belief in the success of a non-existent enterprise is fostered by the payment of quick returns to the first investors from money invested by later investors. So Bitcoin is definitely not a Ponzi or a pyramid. There's definitely an existing enterprise, which is the network and the security of the network and payment transactions and the protocol. The protocol can't just change. We're going through all this deal with SegWit and Bitcoin Unlimited because the network has to decide on its own, independently, because there's an essential control, what's going on as far as the protocol is concerned. So maybe all of us are just under this false assumption that Bitcoin's going to hold its value. I don't know.
It's a fraud. I don't think it has legitimate...
It's a fraud, guys. All the money anyone else has made, complete fraud. And for all the stuff I've bought in with Bitcoin, fraud. Just a complete and utter fraud.
Legitimate scope within society, and I don't think it's a viable currency.
Okay.
What does legitimate scope even mean, honestly?
But that's Bitcoin. What about what Stephanie was alluding to, this idea?
What about the altcoins? All of the people in the altcoin world want him to say, but of course he doesn't say that, because why would he? Altcoins are garbage.
That perhaps too much, and this is something I know you're familiar with by virtue of your investing and the dealings that you have with banks and the currency trades.
Yeah, seriously, like XRP is, does this guy know about Ripple and the deals Ripple's had with the banks? I mean, I think Ripple ultimately is trash too, but at the very least that shows some legitimacy to cryptocurrencies as sort of the IOU system.
You have to execute worldwide. Is there still too much friction in the system? In other words,
Yeah, there is, and that's how people like this Richards guy makes a lot of their money. Friction is where, friction and time is what costs many people the remittance costs, for example, for Western Union, or just sending an ACH transfer takes 3 days or something like that.
there are too many people along the way taking their margin, exacting their toll.
Yeah, this Bloomberg guy is killing it right now.
And ultimately, for an investor like you, reducing your returns.
Well, that is
That's part of the appeal
What is it going to say? Back to the corner.
of Bitcoin, right? That it's frictionless.
I don't believe it's frictionless. I believe it's a store of
Of course he doesn't believe. Why would he, right? I mean, this guy's trying to save his own skin here.
money, which is purported to be, which is a fraud.
Guys, it's a fraud. Listen, just pack your bags. Unsubscribe. This whole thing was a fraud. A ruse. I can't believe it. It's been, 3-4 years now? And we've come to this. It's over.
Very simply.
Bitcoin is a fraud.
I believe that Bitcoin will not have a legitimate place in history as a currency. Correct.
No, it'll be completely illegitimate and above this guy, I think. I mean, is he going to eat his words when the ETF gets approved? Because that would be great. He, of course, won't, but it's pretty funny. He reminds me a lot of the Professor Bitcoin guy. So back in 2013, there was this guy at the Senate hearings who was very anti-cryptocurrency, saying he was going to go to $13. He's like some professor at Boston University or Harvard, I can't remember. Anyway, so he's like just like this guy, just completely anti, just dismissive.
Well, there you go.
I guess we got that answer question. The question answered, excuse me.
I guess the one thing I struggle with when people say, listen, Bitcoin is used to smuggle money, to smuggle drugs, to buy illegal things. People use real dollars for hookers.
Yeah, they do. Listen, Bloomberg killing it for Bitcoin lately, just plugging this greatly.
Drugs, too. I mean, they do.
People use real money, and real money is something that any business would accept.
Any legitimate business will accept real, quote-unquote, money, real money.
And any bank would accept. And besides...
Drug dealers also accept real money.
Yeah, they do.
And besides...
So do hookers.
And Bitcoin isn't
So do hookers, yeah.
accepted by the banks. It's not accepted by businesses at large.
But it is. It is accepted by businesses at large. It is concerning, though, as fewer and fewer businesses are accepting it, which ultimately, for me, for Bitcoin needing to have some sort of success, it does need to be an invisible payment layer, because it's too confusing for the average Joe. I mean, even this guy, Bruce Richards, who manages money, can't seem to understand it.
And there are a few businesses that might accept Bitcoin who have vested interest in wanting to see Bitcoin prices go up.
I guess. I mean, maybe. They just don't want to pay as much for the credit card, right?
But I don't believe Bitcoins will be used as a currency which businesses and people will want to have as a store of value or to trade in.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate to, have any store value this past 4 years on anything I've bought. Man, such fraud.
I don't believe that is the case. And I believe it's a fad.
It's Beanie Babies, guys. Beanie Babies, Pogs, and, Tamagotchi.
I believe it'll go away. And I believe what you...
It's just gonna go away. We're just gonna close our eyes, and one day it'll all be fine. It'll all go away.
You've seen recently on the exchange is first evidence of that.
All right, guys, that was the video. Tell me what you think in the comments. Let me know if you love or hate this kind of thing. If you've got anything else for me to react to, let me know. Yeah, happy trading.